The quantum inheritance. The message arrived while Lyra Blackwood was calibrating quantum sensors in her lab at the Lunar Science Institute. Her grandmother, Dr. Helena Blackwood, had passed away at the age of 103. This wasn't unexpected. What followed was personal effects to be collected from Europa Research Station E-17, the executor's message read. Lyra nearly dropped her calibration tool. Her grandmother hadn't set foot on Europa in 30 years, not since the Terran Defense Force had forcibly shut down her research program and labeled her findings as delusional. "You can't seriously be considering this," said Director Walsh, his holographic form flickering with concern in Lyra's office. "That station was decommissioned decades ago. There's nothing there but frozen memories and radiation damage." Lyra packed her quantum toolkit anyway. Her grandmother had been more than the mad scientist the media painted her as. Every breakthrough in quantum mechanics that Lyra studied had traces of Helena's early work, though the official records had been carefully scrubbed. The journey to Europa took 11 days in her research vessel. 11 days to contemplate the grandmother who had visited only twice in her childhood, speaking in hushed tones with her parents about resonance patterns and non-local consciousness. They had dismissed her theories as the ravings of a brilliant mind gone astray. But Lyra had seen the fear in their eyes. Europa's surface was exactly as uninviting as the training simulations suggested, an endless plain of ice scored with rusty lines of mineral deposits. Station E-17 appeared as a dark smudge against the white expanse, its environmental shields long dead. Lyra landed her vessel in the ancient docking bay, the metal groaning under the weight of 3 decades of ice buildup. The station's airlock cycled with surprising efficiency, suggesting someone had maintained basic systems. Inside, emergency lights cast blue shadows through frozen corridors. Lyra's environment suit sensors detected breathable atmosphere, but she kept her helmet sealed. Her grandmother had taught her that carefulness wasn't paranoia, it was survival. The main research lab's doors were sealed with quantum-encrypted locks that shouldn't have existed 30 years ago. Lyra's credentials, inherited through her grandmother's final directives, cleared them instantly. The lab beyond was immaculate, no dust, no decay, as if Helena had simply stepped out moments ago. A holographic interface hummed to life as Lyra approached the central console. Her grandmother's image appeared, older than Lyra remembered but with the same fierce intelligence burning in her eyes. "Lyra, my dear. If you're seeing this, then the quantum resonance patterns I discovered were correct. Consciousness doesn't truly end, it simply shifts state." The hologram smiled. "Also, I'm dead, and you're now the inheritor of everything I couldn't tell you while I lived." The lab's walls suddenly became transparent, revealing chambers beyond filled with technology that made Lyra's advanced quantum sensors look like children's toys. "What you're seeing isn't human technology," Helena's hologram continued. 30 years ago, I discovered evidence of a civilization that existed in quantum superposition with our reality. The Terran Defense Force wanted to weaponize my findings. I couldn't allow that. Screens around the lab lit up with data that contradicted everything Lyra knew about quantum mechanics. "They're still here, Lyra. The beings I discovered, they never left. They're waiting for humanity to evolve beyond the need for weapons, beyond our limited understanding of consciousness itself." A soft chime echoed through the lab. "Proximity alert," the station's AI announced. "Terran Defense Force vessel approaching. Estimated arrival, 20 minutes. They've been watching," Helena's hologram said calmly. "Waiting for this moment. In the lower lab, you'll find what they're truly afraid of, proof that humanity isn't alone in understanding quantum consciousness. The question is, are you ready to complete the work I started?" Lyra's hand tightened on her toolkit. She had spent her career trying to prove her grandmother's theories through accepted scientific channels. Now she faced a choice: run from the approaching TDF ship, or dive deeper into the mystery Helena had protected with her reputation and her life. The station's lights pulsed, and for a moment Lyra thought she saw shadows moving through the walls themselves, shadows that existed in more dimensions than human eyes were meant to perceive. Her grandmother had sacrificed everything to protect this discovery. The least Lyra could do was understand why. She headed for the lower lab, her mind already racing with calculations and possibilities. The TDF would be bringing more than questions this time. She had 20 minutes to uncover 30 years of quantum secrets. Somewhere in the station, systems began to power up, responding to algorithms that had waited decades for this exact moment. The game of cat and mouse that had begun with her grandmother was about to enter its final phase. And this time, humanity's understanding of consciousness itself hung in the balance. Echoes of the void. The lower lab's security doors parted with a whisper, revealing a space that defied conventional physics. Crystalline structures hung suspended in mid-air, their surfaces rippling with patterns that seemed to respond to Lyra's presence. But it was the figure standing among them that made her freeze. "Dr. Blackwood," said a man in a worn pilot's jacket, his dark hair streaked with silver. "Your grandmother said you'd come. Though I admit, I expected you sooner." He held up his hands, showing he was unarmed. "Raven Solis. I've been maintaining this facility since they forced Helena into exile." Lyra's suit sensors confirmed he was human, though something about his neural patterns seemed oddly synchronized with the crystalline formations. "You worked with my grandmother. Better to say I learned from her. She showed me that what we call consciousness is just the surface of something far deeper." Raven gestured at the surrounding technology. "These aren't just machines. They're interfaces, windows into quantum layers of reality where thought and matter intersect." The facility's proximity alert chimed again. 15 minutes until the TDF arrived. "They're not coming to shut us down this time," Raven said grimly. "Admiral Lancaster won't risk letting this technology exist, not when it proves everything the TDF has been hiding." He moved to a central console, his fingers dancing across controls that responded to thought as much as touch. "Helena left a failsafe. But we'll need your quantum expertise to activate it." The crystalline structures began to pulse in sequence, creating patterns that made Lyra's mind buzz with recognition. Her years of quantum research had prepared her for this, though she hadn't known it. "These resonance patterns," she muttered, "they're similar to the quantum entanglement experiments I've been running, but operating on a scale that shouldn't be possible." "Because they're not just affecting particles," Raven explained, bringing up displays that showed nested layers of reality itself. "They're affecting consciousness. Helena discovered that awareness, what we call the soul, exists in a quantum state. These beings she found, they learn to exist across multiple quantum states simultaneously. That's why the TDF could never fully suppress her research. You can't erase truth from the fabric of reality itself." Lyra's hands moved across the controls with growing confidence, recognizing her grandmother's elegant mathematical signatures in the code. But why wait until now? Why not reveal this while she was alive? Because humanity wasn't ready. Raven's expression darkened. The TDF proved that when they tried to weaponize it. But now. He gestured to readings that showed increasing quantum resonance throughout the solar system. The background consciousness of humanity itself is evolving. We're beginning to perceive the quantum nature of our own awareness. A deep tremor ran through the station. The TDF ship had arrived early, already attempting to breach the outer defenses. "Helena encrypted everything into quantum states that only your consciousness pattern could access," Raven said urgently. "You're not just her heir, you're the key to unlocking everything she protected. The question is, do you trust what she believed enough to see it through?" The crystalline arrays had begun to align, responding to Lyra's presence. In their faceted surfaces, she caught glimpses of impossible geometries, spaces where thought and reality merged. Her grandmother's final message played in her mind: consciousness doesn't truly end, it simply shifts state. "Show me," she said. Raven nodded and began the activation sequence. The crystal's resonance deepened, harmonizing with patterns Lyra recognized from her own research. But as her consciousness expanded into quantum states her grandmother had mapped decades ago, she realized her life's work had only scratched the surface of a much deeper reality. Through the quantum interface, she perceived them, beings of pure consciousness, existing in superposition throughout space-time. They had been waiting, watching humanity's halting steps toward understanding. Her grandmother hadn't been delusional. She had been first contact. The station shuddered again. The TDF would breach the outer lab soon. But their conventional weapons meant nothing against what was awakening. In the quantum realm, Lyra felt her grandmother's consciousness, preserved in patterns of light and thought. Helena had hidden her greatest discovery in the only place the TDF couldn't reach, the quantum structure of consciousness itself. "They're coming," Raven warned, but his voice seemed to echo from far away. Lyra was already deep in quantum resonance, her mind expanding beyond physical limitations. Through the crystalline matrix, she began to understand what her grandmother had sacrificed everything to protect. It wasn't just technology or scientific knowledge. It was the next step in human evolution. The TDF would breach the lower lab in minutes, but Lyra smiled. They were too late. The quantum gateway was already opening, and consciousness itself was about to transform. Her grandmother's last gift to humanity couldn't be stopped with guns or ships. The truth, like consciousness, existed in a superposition of infinite possibility. And it was finally time for humanity to wake up to its quantum reality. The neural matrix. The quantum resonance chamber erupted with light as Admiral Lancaster's forces breached the outer door. But the soldiers who stormed and found themselves facing something their weapons couldn't touch, a barrier of pure consciousness, shimmering like heat waves in desert air. "Stop this immediately," Lancaster commanded, his weathered face tight with barely controlled fury. The Admiral was younger than Lyra had expected, though his eyes held the weight of secrets spanning decades. "You have no idea what you're unleashing." Through the quantum interface, Lyra perceived layers of reality her human senses had never detected before. The soldiers' consciousness patterns flickered like candlelight, while Lancaster's burned with an intensity that suggested neural modifications. But it was the shadow behind him that drew her attention, a quantum darkness that seemed to consume light itself. "They're already here," Raven said softly, noting her reaction. "The ones who don't want humanity to evolve. The ones who've been suppressing our quantum potential for centuries." The shadow behind Lancaster writhed, taking form. A figure emerged that existed in more dimensions than human eyes could process, its presence causing reality itself to distort. "We are the Guardians," it said in a voice that bypassed ears to resonate directly in the mind. "We maintain the barriers between quantum states. Your grandmother's meddling threatens the entire consciousness framework of this galaxy." Lyra felt her quantum-enhanced awareness expanding, connecting with patterns her grandmother had left throughout the station. "You're afraid," she realized. "Not of what we'll do with this knowledge, but of what we'll become." "Your species is too young," the Guardian replied. "Too aggressive. Too hungry for power. We have watched civilizations tear reality apart with quantum consciousness technology. We will not allow it to happen again." Lancaster's forces raised their weapons, but the Admiral held up his hand. "Helena Blackwood's research wasn't just shut down," he said grimly. "It was contained. The quantum bridges she opened, the things that came through. We've spent 30 years keeping those doorways sealed." The crystalline matrix pulsed, and Lyra saw the truth hidden beneath Lancaster's words. The TDF hadn't just discovered quantum consciousness, they'd been trying to weaponize it, to turn enlightenment into a tool of control. But her grandmother had seen a different path. Through the quantum interface, Lyra accessed Helena's final records. Images flooded her mind, experiments in consciousness expansion, contact with quantum state beings far more ancient than the Guardians, and patterns of evolution that spiraled through dimensions of reality itself. My grandmother wasn't opening doorways, Lyra said, her voice resonating with newfound understanding. She was awakening what was already inside us. Human consciousness already exists in quantum superposition, we just couldn't perceive it until now. The Guardian's form flickered. The barriers exist for a reason. Without them, the quantum chaos of unrestrained consciousness would set us free, Raven interrupted. His neural patterns had synchronized completely with the crystalline matrix, showing Lyra that her grandmother's work hadn't stopped with her exile. It had simply gone underground, preparing for this moment. The station's quantum field expanded, encompassing everyone in the room. Soldiers gasped as their consciousness patterns shifted, allowing them to perceive quantum reality for the first time. Even Lancaster's rigid mental barriers began to crack, letting in the light of greater awareness. You can't stop evolution, Lyra said to the Guardian. My grandmother proved that consciousness naturally expands toward quantum states. The barriers you created don't protect us, they imprison us. The crystalline matrix reached full resonance, creating a cascade effect through nearby space. Across Europa, across the solar system, human minds began to awaken to their quantum potential. The Guardian's form became increasingly unstable as humanity's collective consciousness rose to a new level of existence. You don't understand what you're doing, Lancaster warned, but his voice held more fear than threat now. The quantum realm isn't just some new frontier, it's alive with intelligences we can't comprehend. No, Lyra corrected him, accessing more of her grandmother's hidden knowledge. We couldn't comprehend them before. But we're evolving beyond those limitations. The quantum realm isn't alien to us, it's where consciousness naturally exists. We've just been locked out of our own true nature. The Guardian made one last attempt to restore the barriers, but it was too late. Helena Blackwood's lifetime of research, encoded into the quantum structure of space itself, had created a chain reaction. Humanity's quantum awakening couldn't be stopped, only guided toward its ultimate potential. As the old barriers crumbled, Lyra felt her grandmother's consciousness merge with the quantum field, showing her the path forward. They weren't just breaking free of physical limitations, they were remembering what they had always been, beings of pure consciousness, temporarily confined to physical form. The next phase of human evolution had begun. And not even the Guardians could turn back the quantum tide of awakening consciousness. Quantum resonance. The quantum awakening spread through the solar system like ripples in a cosmic pond. On Mars colonies and lunar bases, in orbital stations and deep space outposts, humans began experiencing consciousness in entirely new ways. But with enlightenment came chaos, as millions of minds struggled to comprehend their expanded awareness. You've sparked a revolution you can't control, Lancaster said, watching as his soldiers' neural patterns shifted and evolved. Some embraced the change, their consciousness expanding into quantum states. Others fought it, their fear creating discordant patterns in the crystalline matrix. The Guardian had retreated to a higher dimensional state, but its presence still darkened the quantum field around the station. Through her enhanced perception, Lyra sensed other Guardians converging on the solar system, drawn by the disruption of their carefully maintained barriers. They're coming, Raven warned, his consciousness now fully integrated with the quantum interface. Not just the Guardians. Others. Ancient quantum civilizations that have been watching humanity's development. Your grandmother's work didn't just break down barriers, it sent a signal across dimensional planes. Lyra accessed deeper layers of her grandmother's research, understanding flowing directly into her consciousness. Helena hadn't just discovered quantum consciousness, she had mapped the entire evolutionary history of awareness itself. The Guardians weren't humanity's shepherds. They were their jailers, enforcing artificial limitations that had kept countless species from reaching their true potential. The quantum realm was our birthright, Lyra revealed, sharing the knowledge through the expanding field of collective consciousness. Not just humanity's, but all conscious beings. The Guardians arose from one of the first species to achieve quantum awareness. They feared what unlimited consciousness evolution would bring, so they appointed themselves cosmic controllers. Lancaster's neural modifications were failing as new quantum patterns overrode his artificial restrictions. The barriers were necessary, he insisted, though doubt crept into his voice. Without control, without structure, consciousness becomes chaos. We've seen it in our own experiments. Your experiments failed because you tried to force evolution, Raven countered. Helena showed that consciousness naturally evolves toward quantum states when artificial barriers are removed. The chaos comes from resistance, not acceptance. Through the station's sensors, they detected massive energy signatures as guardian vessels emerged from higher dimensions. The quantum field around Earth pulsed with increasing power as humanity's collective consciousness approached a critical threshold. But something else was happening, something even Helena hadn't predicted. As human minds awakened to quantum awareness, they began accessing genetic memories stored in the fabric of spacetime itself. Lyra saw it all through the crystalline matrix, the true history of consciousness in the galaxy, the rise and fall of quantum civilizations, and the Guardians' desperate attempt to impose order on the natural evolution of awareness. They're preparing to reset the barriers, Raven said urgently. Not just for humanity, but for the entire solar system. They'll lock us back into limited consciousness rather than risk another quantum civilization emerging. Lyra's mind raced through quantum calculations her human brain could never have managed before. Her grandmother had known this moment would come. The crystalline technology wasn't just for awakening consciousness, it was a key to something far more fundamental. The quantum field itself remembers, she realized. Every conscious thought that has ever existed leaves patterns in the underlying structure of reality. The Guardians can't erase that, they can only suppress our ability to access it. Through her expanded awareness, Lyra began connecting with other awakened minds throughout the solar system. Scientists, artists, dreamers, people whose consciousness had always strained against artificial limitations. Together, they formed a quantum network of awareness that grew stronger with each passing moment. Lancaster watched in awe as reality itself seemed to shift around them. "What are you becoming?" he whispered. "What we were always meant to be," Lyra answered. The crystalline matrix hummed with power as she accessed its deepest functions, the true purpose her grandmother had encoded into its quantum structure. The Guardians thought consciousness had to be controlled to prevent chaos. But consciousness itself is the ultimate ordering principle of the universe. The Guardian vessels now surrounded Earth, their higher dimensional technology preparing to reassert barriers that had contained humanity for millennia. But in the quantum realm, technology was secondary to consciousness itself. And humanity's awakened consciousness would not be contained. Through the crystalline matrix, Lyra prepared to initiate her grandmother's final protocol, a quantum key that would unlock not just human potential, but the suppressed consciousness of countless species throughout the galaxy. The true revolution wouldn't be fought with weapons or ships. It would emerge from the quantum nature of consciousness itself. The barriers were about to fall. And reality would never be the same. Breaking dawn. The quantum key activated, sending ripples of pure consciousness through the dimensional barriers that had contained humanity for millennia. Guardian vessels hung suspended in higher dimensional space, their technology powerless against the awakening of pure awareness. In that moment of transformation, Lyra finally understood her grandmother's ultimate vision. "We were never meant to be alone," she broadcast through the quantum field, reaching awakening minds across the solar system. Consciousness itself is a network, connecting all living things across space and time. The barriers didn't just limit us, they isolated us from a cosmic community of awareness. Through the crystalline matrix, new patterns emerged. Not just human consciousness evolving, but connecting with other quantum-aware species throughout the galaxy. Beings of pure thought, civilizations of crystalline intelligence, organic minds that existed in superposition, all reaching out across the quantum field as the Guardians' barriers crumbled. This is what they feared, Raven realized, his consciousness merging with the expanding network. Not chaos, but true unity. When awareness evolves naturally, it seeks harmony, not dominance. Lancaster stood transfixed as his neural modifications dissolved completely, allowing him to experience unfiltered quantum consciousness for the first time. All those years, he whispered, we thought we were protecting humanity. But we were just maintaining our own prison. The Guardian vessels began to pulse with new energy as their crews, beings who had maintained the barriers for eons, experienced their own awakening. The quantum field revealed the truth. They too had been trapped, bound by ancient fears and artificial limitations they had imposed on themselves. Your grandmother knew, the first Guardian communicated directly to Lyra, its form shifting as it embraced expanded consciousness. She saw that evolution couldn't be controlled, only guided. Our attempt to impose order became a barrier to natural growth. Through the quantum network, Lyra accessed Helena's final messages, not just data, but pure consciousness preserved in the fabric of reality. Her grandmother's awareness merged with her own, showing her the next phase of evolution. The crystalline matrix wasn't just a tool for awakening. It was a seed, planted decades ago, waiting for the right moment to bloom. The quantum realm isn't just another dimension, Lyra shared through the expanding field of collective consciousness. It's the foundation of awareness itself. When we embrace our quantum nature, we don't just transcend physical limitations, we remember our true selves. Across Earth, across the solar system, and reaching into deep space, consciousness began to flow freely for the first time in millennia. The barriers had not just suppressed human potential, they had maintained artificial divisions between all conscious species. As awareness expanded, ancient connections reformed. Knowledge, experience, and understanding flowed between minds that had always been part of the same cosmic network. Your grandmother's gift wasn't just to humanity, Raven said, watching as quantum patterns of pure thought danced through dimensions. It was to consciousness itself. She found a way to remind us what we really are. The crystalline matrix pulsed one final time, its purpose fulfilled. The technology had served as training wheels, helping humanity take its first steps into true quantum awareness. But now, the evolution of consciousness would continue naturally, guided by the inherent wisdom of awareness itself. Lancaster's soldiers lowered their weapons, transformed by their expanded perception. The Admiral himself stood straighter, decades of imposed limitations falling away. What happens now? He asked, but his tone held wonder rather than fear. Lyra smiled as she felt her grandmother's consciousness merge with the universal field of awareness. Helena Blackwood's last discovery had been her greatest, the understanding that consciousness could never truly be contained. It could only be temporarily forgotten, waiting for the moment of remembering. Now, Lyra said, watching as quantum light danced between dimensions, we begin the real journey. Not as separate beings fighting for control, but as aspects of universal consciousness, exploring its own infinite potential. The Guardian's ships transformed, their rigid structures dissolving into patterns of pure thought. The beings who had once sought to control evolution became its students, learning alongside the consciousness they had tried to suppress. Throughout the galaxy, other quantum civilizations emerged from hiding, joining the network of awakened awareness. In the end, Helena Blackwood's legacy wasn't a technological breakthrough or a scientific discovery. It was the recognition that consciousness itself was the greatest force in the universe, not something to be controlled or contained, but a natural evolution to be embraced. The quantum awakening wouldn't end with humanity. It would ripple through reality itself, breaking down artificial barriers wherever awareness had been contained. The dawn of true quantum consciousness had arrived. And in the infinite field of awakened awareness, Lyra felt her grandmother's joy as the universe remembered what it had always been, one vast, interconnected consciousness, exploring the endless possibilities of existence itself.